In the endless black of space, the stars seemed to whisper secrets of empires that had ruled for centuries. Massive fleets drifted in silent formations, their metal hulls gleaming cold under distant suns. To the rulers of these empires, humanity was nothing more than a primitive species, scattered across a handful of weak star systems, insignificant and irrelevant. They spoke of humans with contempt, mocking the small, fragile colonies as if the tiny blue planets were merely dust in the galaxy's vast corridors. But humans had always defied expectations. Where others saw weakness, they saw resilience. Where others saw chaos, humans found opportunity. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from prying alien eyes, Earth had built something no empire could foresee, something that would change the balance of power forever. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, her eyes scanning the star map that floated in front of her as a glowing hologram. She was young, barely 30, yet her shoulders carried the weight of humanity's future. Her hands hovered over the console, fingers trembling slightly, not from fear but from anticipation. Every beat of her heart echoed with a strange mixture of pride, fear, and hope. This moment, this mission, would decide the fate of her species. The humans aboard the Vanguard were the first pilots of the Merciless strike wings, a fleet of advanced star jets designed with unmatched speed, agility, and weaponry. Unlike alien ships that relied purely on size and firepower, these jets were smart, adaptive, and deadly. They were designed for humans by humans, and they reflected something deeper than technology. They reflected human spirit. In the empty quiet of space, Alara could almost hear the voices of her ancestors, whispering through the void. The pioneers, the engineers, the dreamers who had imagined humanity rising beyond its small blue home, were all a part of her now. She drew a slow breath. "Today we show them what humanity truly is," she murmured. Her words were not loud, but in the silence of the bridge they felt powerful. Across the galaxy, alien admirals laughed at the idea that humans could ever threaten their empires. In the Varelian sector, Admiral Thrax of the Orvathian fleet looked at his consoles, shaking his head with amusement. "Pathetic," he muttered. "These humans are not even a challenge. Send 100 of our ships. Crush them before they even reach orbit. There is no threat here." He could not know and could not imagine that humanity had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. That the strike wings were not just ships but symbols of defiance. Symbols of courage. Symbols of a species that would not bow. In hidden shipyards, the strike wings had been constructed piece by piece. Every bolt, every weapon system, every neural link control was designed to maximize human potential. They were small, yes, but they moved like lightning. They could strike, disappear, and strike again in ways no alien fleet had ever seen. They were the embodiment of humanity's audacity. Alara turned to her squadron, the pilots who had become her family in the void. Faces pale in the dim light of the bridge, eyes wide with nervous excitement, they waited for her command. Each one carried a story of sacrifice, parents lost to alien raids, friends who had trained tirelessly, nights spent dreaming of a galaxy where humans would be free. And now, together, they would carve that freedom into reality. "Remember," Alara said, her voice steady, filled with determination. "They have the numbers. They have the ships. But we have something they do not: courage, heart, and the will to fight. Today, humanity takes its first step into history. We strike, we survive, and we rise." The squadron responded with quiet murmurs of agreement. Not a cheer, not a roar, just a shared understanding that they were about to do the impossible. Alara felt her pulse quicken. She knew fear was natural, but it could not control them. Fear was the fuel that would sharpen their instincts, heighten their senses, and drive them forward. Outside the ship, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent to human ambition. Nebulae glowed like faint scars in the darkness, reminding all who looked that even beauty could be dangerous. And yet, in this expanse of emptiness, humanity's spark burned brighter than ever. Alara closed her eyes for a moment. Imagining the strike wings cutting through enemy lines, Dodging plasma fire and striking with precise, merciless efficiency, she imagined the moment when the alien admirals would realize that their centuries of dominance were ending, that the species they had mocked as weak, fragile, and insignificant was not only surviving, but thriving. And then, with a deep breath that shook off the weight of doubt, she opened her eyes. The bridge lights reflected off her determined face. "All wings, prepare for launch," she commanded. Her words were sharp, unyielding, carrying the weight of the human spirit across the stars. The strike wing's engines hummed to life, a sound that was both mechanical and alive. The pilots gripped their controls, hearts pounding in synchrony with the machines that had become extensions of themselves. Humanity's first strike was about to begin. As the Vanguard and its fleet of strike wings slipped silently into the darkness, a single thought echoed through every human mind aboard. The galaxy might underestimate them, laugh at them, or even try to destroy them, but humans would never kneel. Not today, not ever. And somewhere in the cold, empty corridors of alien empires, the first ripples of fear began to stir. The darkness of space was broken by sudden light as the strike wings roared from the hangars of the SS Vanguard. Each jet was a sleek arrow of death, painted in human colors, small enough to dodge the largest enemy cannons, yet deadly enough to take down ships many times their size. Their engines glowed a soft blue, cutting through the void like streaks of lightning. Captain Alara Kane led the formation, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the Orvathian command station. The station was a massive fortress, protected by layers of plasma shields and hundreds of warships. To any other species it was untouchable, but humans did not fight like others. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were clever. Humans were relentless. "Ilara, sensors show multiple patrols near the outer perimeter," reported Lieutenant Marco, his voice steady but tense. "They'll detect us if we aren't careful." Ilara nodded. "Good, let them watch. Let them feel safe. And then we strike where they least expect it." Her hand hovered over the release panel for their stealth modules. With a soft click, the strike wings vanished from conventional sensors. They were invisible ghosts in the void, ready to become a nightmare. The human pilots shared glances over their communication links. Nervousness mixed with excitement. Some whispered short prayers. Others clenched their jaws, determined not to show fear. All of them felt the same thing. History was in their hands. Every action, every maneuver, every shot would be remembered for centuries, or it would end in failure and death. They approached the first layer of patrol ships. The aliens were confident, arrogant, assuming they could outgun any human craft. But the strike wings moved with precision, darting through the gaps in the patrol formation. Missiles fired blindly at them, plasma streams cutting through the black, yet none found a target. Humans were everywhere and nowhere, a blur of blue and white across the stars. Alara's voice rang in the squadron's ears. "Remember patience. Strike hard, strike fast, then disappear." And then, with a synchronized command, the strike wings attacked. They split into multiple squads, diving from different angles. Micro-missiles, EMP pulses, and plasma disruptors tore through the patrols. Explosions lit the darkness like stars being born and dying in the same moment. The aliens' confidence shattered as their carefully arranged defenses collapsed in minutes. From the bridge of the Orvathian command station, Admiral Thrax watched in disbelief. His eyes widened. "Impossible. These humans, they are too fast, too coordinated. Prepare the main cannons."
"Fire everything?"
But it was already too late. The strike wings were inside the station's orbit, weaving through laser turrets, dodging cannon fire, and striking the power generators that fueled the shields. The explosions cascaded through the station, massive plumes of plasma and fire lighting up space. Alara's heart raced. She felt the fear and exhilaration of battle blend into one sharp focus. Each move had to be perfect. One mistake, and the station's automated defenses could wipe them out instantly. Yet as they moved, they became more than pilots. They became human courage in motion, a storm of determination against impossible odds. "Direct hit on shield generators," Marco shouted. "They're going down!" The shields flickered, then collapsed. A deafening silence followed, broken only by the hum of human engines, and then the strike wings unleashed their final salvo. Micro-missiles tore through the hull, ripping massive holes in the fortress. The station shook violently, alarms blaring. Alara looked at the destruction in awe, but there was no time to celebrate. The alien fleet around the station began to converge, hundreds of warships moving in a coordinated attack to trap them. Humans were outnumbered, but they were not outsmarted. "Formation Delta," Alara commanded.
"Flank left!"
"Hit their engines, not their hulls. Make them chase ghosts." The strike wings danced through space, dodging massive energy beams and counterattacks, their movement almost poetic. Each pilot relied not just on instruments but on instinct, courage, and trust in each other. Every human mind and machine worked as one. From the observation deck of the station, Thrax's jaw tightened. "These humans, they are not just surviving, they are controlling this battle," he whispered, fear creeping into his voice for the first time in decades. The final moments of the strike were devastating. The station, once thought indestructible, collapsed into a cloud of burning debris. Alien ships, scattered and disorganized, fled in panic. Humanity had struck hard without mercy, and now the galaxy could no longer dismiss them as insignificant. Ilara's squadron regrouped near the vanguard, engines still glowing, hearts pounding with triumph and exhaustion. "We did it," whispered one of the young pilots, barely believing it. Alara looked at her team, pride swelling in her chest. "Yes," she said softly, "but this is only the beginning. They will come after us, stronger, faster, smarter, and we will be ready, because humanity, we do not kneel." In the distance, the debris of the command station glimmered like fallen stars. Across the galaxy, somewhere deep in the alien empires, the first whispers of fear began to spread. Humans had struck first, merciless and precise, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy had heard the first strike. The Orvathian command station had fallen, and with it a wave of panic rippled through the Varelian sector. But the alien empires were not so easily defeated. They had grown powerful over centuries, their fleets vast and merciless. To them, humans were pests to be exterminated, not equals to be respected. Captain Alara Kane knew this. As the SS Vanguard and the strike wings returned to a hidden base, she studied the holographic map, her face illuminated by glowing star systems. "They will come for us," she said quietly, "and when they do, we must be ready to show them that humans do not surrender. Not ever." Lieutenant Marco leaned over her shoulder, tracing the paths of enemy fleets with his fingers. "Captain, we're outnumbered, maybe 10 to 1 in some sectors. How do we fight them?" Alara's eyes were sharp. "Not by numbers. By skill, by courage, by strategy. They think they can crush us because we are small, weak, and few, but they don't understand humans. They don't know how we fight when everything is against us." Her squadron, tired but energized by their first victory, gathered around her. Some looked anxious, others resolute, but all felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on them. Humans had won one battle, but the war was just beginning. Reports poured in from across human colonies. The news was both frightening and motivating. Alien patrols were increasing, scouting human systems and attacking isolated colonies with brutal force. Entire worlds had already been destroyed for resisting, but resistance, small and desperate, had begun to rise. Humans had seen what courage could do. Other species, long oppressed, whispered of rebellion. Alara took a deep breath. "We strike where they least expect it. We save our people and we inspire hope. That is how we win. That is how humans rise." The next weeks were a blur of attacks and counterattacks. The strike wings darted through asteroid belts, used the gravity of dying stars as cover, and struck alien convoys with terrifying efficiency. Every mission was dangerous. Every victory was costly. Yet humans adapted. Every mistake taught them a lesson. Every loss strengthened their resolve. One night in the quiet of her quarters, Alara watched the stars from a small viewport. The lights of distant systems twinkled like tiny promises of freedom. She thought of the colonies that had been lost, the families who would never return, and the pilots who had given everything for the first strike. Her chest tightened with sorrow, but also with determination. A voice broke the silence. "Captain Kane?" It was Lieutenant Mara, her eyes wide with worry. "Do you ever wonder if we're enough?" Alara smiled softly, though it did not reach the sadness in her eyes. "We are never enough by their standards, but by ours, we are more than enough. Each time we fight, each time we survive, each time we protect even one person. That is victory. That is humanity." The humans were proving that even the smallest species could challenge empires. They had no massive fleets, no centuries of political alliances, no unimaginable technology. But they had audacity, they had determination, and they had the unbreakable will to survive. In response, the alien empires gathered their admirals in secret councils. Thrax, shaken from his first encounter with the strike wings, slammed his clawed fist against a hollow table. "They are not supposed to fight like this. They are not supposed to survive our first strike." Another admiral hissed in agreement. "They are fast, clever, unpredictable. They adapt faster than any intelligence predicts. This is unacceptable." But the humans were not fighting for superiority or conquest. They fought for survival, for the right to exist, for the hope of freedom, and that made them dangerous in a way no empire could anticipate. Alara's strike wings became more than a fleet. They became a symbol. When a human jet streaked across the sky above a besieged colony, it inspired courage. When alien ships fell, terrified populations whispered of human audacity. And slowly, across star systems, the idea spread. Humans fight differently. Humans refuse to bow. Humans rise when all seems lost. One particularly brutal battle over the icy world of Merciless tested every pilot's skill. The alien fleet tried to encircle the humans, trapping them in a deadly pincer. Alara's mind raced, calculating every angle. She split her squadron into shadow teams, sending one through asteroid tunnels while the others created diversions. Explosions lit the cold sky. Ships screamed and spun, and in the chaos, the humans struck with surgical precision. When the battle ended, several strike wings were lost, and the survivors were battered and exhausted. Yet they had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had survived again. Alara floated in zero gravity, her heart aching for those who would never return, yet burning with pride for those who had fought beside her. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. "They will strike back stronger and more ruthless. But so will we, and every time they think they can break us, they will be reminded. Humans do not kneel." The galaxy had changed, though no empire fully realized it yet. The small blue planets once dismissed were now the source of hope, fear, and challenge. Humanity had risen not by force alone, but by courage, ingenuity, and the unwillingness to submit. And the war for the stars, for freedom, and for survival was only just beginning. The galaxy had grown quiet in the wake of humanity's rising strikes. But that quiet was only the calm before a storm that threatened to consume everything. Alien empires had realized humans were no longer a minor annoyance. They were a threat, unpredictable and relentless. Fleets were mobilized at speeds never seen before, admirals whispering orders across thousands of kilometers of space, trying to trap a species that refused to be caught. Captain Alara Kane watched the holographic display aboard the SS Vanguard, her eyes scanning the movements of the approaching Zitharan armada. Thousands of warships, sleek, massive, and deadly, advanced like a black wave ready to crush everything in their path. The numbers were staggering, far beyond anything humanity had faced before, and yet Alara felt no fear, not the kind that paralyzes anyway. She felt determination, burning brighter than the stars outside. Lieutenant Marco's voice trembled as he spoke. "Captain, this fleet, it's enormous. Millions of tons of warships. How can we fight them?" Alara leaned forward, her hand tracing the enemy formation. "We fight smart, not large. They rely on brute strength. We rely on brains, courage, and speed. We will strike in ways they cannot predict, and we will make them pay for every ship they send." Her tone was steady, but beneath it was a current of emotion that could ignite the hearts of her pilots. The humans prepared. Across hidden bases, every strike wing was armed, every pilot briefed, every strategy calculated. They would not survive if they acted recklessly. Every move had to be perfect, and yet perfect alone was not enough. Humans needed courage, the kind that beats in the chest, that pushes a person to act even when the odds are impossible. Ilara remembered the words of her mentor. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is moving forward despite it. That truth guided her as she stood before her squadron, the faces of her pilots illuminated by the blue glow of engines and displays. "Listen to me," she said, voice ringing through the comms. "They are stronger. They are more numerous. They believe they can destroy us, but they don't understand humans. They don't know that when we are cornered, we fight harder. We fight smarter. And we fight for each other. Today we turn the tide. Today, we remind the galaxy what humans are capable of." The strike wings launched, slipping into the shadow of a massive asteroid field. The Zitharan armada had anticipated direct attacks, expecting humans to follow predictable paths. But humans were not predictable. Using gravity slings, debris cover, and precise coordination, the strike wings moved like lightning snakes, weaving between massive warships, dodging fire, and leaving the enemy scrambling. Ilara led the main squadron, her hands steady on the controls, her mind racing 1,000 calculations at once. Every twist, every turn, every shot was measured. Each pilot followed instinct, trust, and training. The humans were more than machines. They were a storm of intelligence and courage, alive with audacity. The Zitharan admirals, watching from their command ships, clenched their fists. "Impossible," hissed one. "How can such a small species move like this? How can they strike with precision against fleets 10 times their size?" Ilara did not wait for the enemy to make mistakes. They had already adapted to every contingency. Using coordinated strikes, the strike wings targeted engine cores, communication hubs, and weapon arrays. In minutes, massive capital ships slowed, disabled, and fell, drifting helplessly in the void. Explosions lit the battlefield like distant supernova, yet victory came with cost. A small squadron was lost when an energy beam ripped through the icy surface of a nearby moon, sending shards of rock into the fleet. Communications went silent for precious minutes, and Ilara's chest tightened with grief. Each loss reminded her that courage was not painless. It was heavy, a weight she carried with pride and sorrow alike. "Keep moving," she commanded, voice fierce. "For them, for everyone who believes in freedom." The tide began to turn. Alien formations grew disorganized, unsure where to strike next. Human ingenuity, agility, and relentless attack patterns shattered their rhythm. Even the largest dreadnoughts, capable of annihilating entire colonies, were forced into retreat, their weapons firing blindly as the strike wings danced through their ranks. Ilara glanced at her squadron, hearts pounding, adrenaline burning, eyes focused and alive. "This is the moment," she said softly, almost to herself. "This is why we fight. Not for glory, not for empire, but for survival, for hope, for humanity." As the final wave of human jets struck the core of the enemy formation, a ripple of astonishment spread through the galaxy. Entire fleets that had considered humans irrelevant now feared them. News of the strike wing's audacity spread faster than light-speed communications. Across occupied worlds, oppressed species dared to hope. Humans were not just surviving, they were inspiring rebellion. And in the middle of it all, Ilara felt a strange calm. Fear had been replaced by purpose. Despair had been replaced by determination. Humans had faced the impossible and had not broken. The Zitharan armada was formidable, but it had underestimated the human spirit. The battle ended with the enemy fleet scattered, retreating, their confidence shattered. Pilots cheered through comms, but Ilara remained silent for a moment, letting the weight of the victory sink in. They had survived against impossible odds. They had turned the tide, and as the stars shimmered above the remnants of war, Alara whispered to herself, "They will come back. Stronger, angrier, faster. But so will we, because humans do not kneel." The remnants of the Zitharan armada floated in disarray across the cold void of space. Smoke and debris trailed from shattered warships, and entire fleets moved like wounded beasts, confused and frightened. The galaxy had never seen humans fight like this. They were not just surviving, they were dominating, carving paths of destruction with skill, speed, and relentless courage. Captain Alara Kane hovered over the holographic map of enemy positions aboard the SS Vanguard, her eyes sharp and calculating. Every strike had been precise. Every move had been timed. Humanity's fleets had turned what seemed like certain death into the first glimmers of victory. Yet even in triumph, Alara felt the weight of loss. Every ship lost, every pilot who did not return, reminded her that victory was not free. Lieutenant Marco broke the silence. "Captain, the alien admirals are hailing us. They want to negotiate."
Or surrender, maybe. Alara's jaw tightened.
She didn't expect gratitude, but she had not anticipated fear in their voices either. The very beings who had once laughed at humanity now trembled at the idea of defeat. "Patch them through," she said. Her voice was steady, but beneath it was a fire that had carried her through countless impossible missions. On the command deck of the largest surviving Zitharan ship, Admiral Thrax's claws hovered over the console, trembling. His pride, his arrogance, his centuries of dominance, all of it had been stripped away in a single merciless campaign. "Captain Kane," he said, his voice faltering. How can you do this? You're mere humans." Alara's gaze was cold, unwavering. She could feel the weight of history pressing down. The millions who had perished under alien tyranny, and the countless colonies who had suffered. "I am human," she said slowly, her tone calm but carrying the force of countless lives. "And humans do not kneel." The silence on the other end of the transmission was deafening. Thrax's eyes flickered to the other alien admirals assembled on the bridge. They were broken, unsure, unable to believe that their centuries of power could be undone by a species they had considered insignificant. Alara continued, voice carrying across comms and echoing in every ship. "You have ruled by fear. You have crushed worlds. You have thought yourselves invincible. But we do not fight like you. We fight with courage. We fight with heart. And we fight for every life you thought you could take without consequence." The admirals' faces turned pale, some looking away, unable to meet her gaze. One of them, a veteran of thousands of battles, whispered under his breath, "We underestimated them. Completely underestimated them." Across the void, human fleets regrouped, engines humming softly, shields still warm from recent battles. Pilots floated in their cockpits, exhausted, exhilarated, alive. Some had lost friends, some had survived against odds that should have killed them. Every one of them carried the spirit of humanity, defiant, resilient, unstoppable. Thrax swallowed hard. He looked at his remaining fleet, their formations broken, their morale shattered. For the first time in millennia, an alien admiral understood a terrifying truth. Humanity was not just a species. Humanity was a force of nature, and that force could not be stopped. "Then, what do you want?" Thrax asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and reluctant respect. Alara's eyes softened just slightly. She had no desire for empty vengeance. This was not about glory. It was about justice, survival, and the unbreakable will of a species determined to live free. "We want peace," she said firmly. "We want your fleets to stand down. We want your empires to recognize that the galaxy has changed. And we want no more worlds to fall under your tyranny." A silence followed, thick and heavy. The alien admirals looked at each other, disbelief and awe in their eyes. Their ships were crippled, their strategies undone, their pride shattered. They had ruled for centuries, but now, for the first time, they understood the meaning of humility. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, one by one, the alien admirals knelt, not in submission to humanity but in acknowledgement of their failure. A symbol of respect, fear, and the dawning understanding that the era of unquestioned dominion was over. Across the void, humanity's triumph was absolute, not because they destroyed their enemies, but because they refused to bow to impossible odds. Alara's heart swelled with pride, yet her voice remained steady, carrying the weight of every life lost, every world liberated, every struggle endured. This galaxy belongs to no single species. We will protect it together, or we will fight to defend it. Remember this moment. Remember that humans do not kneel. And remember what it means when courage rises where fear once ruled. In the human fleet, pilots cheered, but the sound was not of arrogance. It was of survival, of unity, and of hope. Every strike wing was a symbol of defiance. Every human pilot carried the legacy of their species. The knowledge that courage and ingenuity could topple even the mightiest of empires. Thrax looked at his fleet one last time. His pride was gone, replaced by the bitter taste of reality. Humans, they are not just survivors, he murmured. They are something more. And in that moment the galaxy shifted. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer with possibility. The darkness pierced by the unrelenting light of human courage. Humanity had risen, and the once mighty admirals of the galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo across generations. Never underestimate a species that refuses to kneel. Captain Alara Kane stood tall on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, watching the remnants of the alien fleet scatter. Her voice, calm but resolute, whispered through the ship's comm system. The galaxy has seen us now, and they will never forget. Humans do not kneel. The galaxy was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. The alien empires that had once ruled with iron claws were fractured, their fleet scattered, their admirals humbled. Systems that had been under their control for centuries were beginning to breathe freely again. Humanity had struck not just with power, but with a courage that reshaped the order of the stars. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the SS Vanguard, watching holographic images of liberated planets. Blue oceans and green continents sparkled on the displays. Worlds that had once lived in fear of alien domination, now stirring with hope. She could feel it, the shift in the galaxy's heartbeat, a rhythm that hummed with possibility. Humanity had proven that no empire, no matter how vast, could crush a species that refused to kneel. Lieutenant Marco floated near her, awe in his eyes. Captain, the reports are coming in. Entire sectors are switching allegiance. The oppressed are rising. Systems are declaring independence. We've done more than fight. We've inspired. Alara nodded. Inspiration had always been humanity's greatest weapon. It was not the largest fleets or the deadliest weapons that won wars. It was the fire in the hearts of those who refused to surrender. It's not enough to destroy their fleets, she said softly. We have to show them that freedom is possible, that they are stronger than their oppressors. That is how empires truly fall. The strike wings continued to patrol the liberated sectors, their presence both a warning and a shield. Humans were no longer fighting merely for survival. They were protectors of freedom. Entire civilizations had risen up, their courage fueled by the example of a species that had stared down annihilation and smiled. Across one newly freed planet, Alara watched through live transmission feeds as citizens gathered in the central square. Children waved at the cameras, elders bowed in gratitude, and soldiers who had once been forced to fight for alien masters now held their heads high. Humanity had not just fought battles in space, they had fought battles in hearts and minds. Yet the victory was not without sorrow. Reports came in of colonies that had been completely destroyed, of families lost, of brave pilots who had sacrificed everything for the cause. Each loss was a scar on the human spirit, a reminder that freedom always demanded a price. Alara's chest ached as she read through the casualty reports, every name a weight she carried silently. Captain, Marco said, his voice quiet. Do you ever feel guilty for those we couldn't save? Ilara looked at him, eyes steady, filled with compassion and resolve. Every day, she admitted. But we cannot let that stop us. Every life we save, every world we protect, every heart we inspire, that is why we fight. That is why humans rise. We honor the fallen by never kneeling, by never giving up. As the months passed, alien empires crumbled further. Their fleets were shattered, and once mighty leaders were forced to negotiate peace or flee to uncharted regions of space. Humanity's influence spread, but it was not empire building that drove them. It was protection, guidance, and the promise of a galaxy where no species would live under fear again. Ilara's fleet became a beacon. The strike wings soared across liberated worlds, their engines glowing like comets against dark skies. Citizens cheered as humans passed overhead, a living symbol of courage and hope. Humanity had risen from scattered colonies to the center of galactic attention, proving that heart and willpower could achieve what brute force alone could never do. In one quiet moment, as the vanguard drifted above a newly free planet, Ilara reflected on what had been accomplished. The galaxy would never be the same. Empires that had thought themselves eternal were now shadows of their former glory. Humanity's name would echo across light years not as conquerors, but as symbols of defiance and resilience. Lieutenant Mara floated beside her, watching the planet below. Do you think they'll ever truly accept us? She asked. Ilara smiled, a soft, weary smile that carried both sadness and pride. They don't have to accept us, she said. They have to respect us, and they do. We have changed the rules of the galaxy. Every species that sees what we've done now knows one truth. Humans do not kneel. Not to fear, not to power, not to anyone. The galaxy was alive with possibility. Systems that had been oppressed for centuries now plotted their own futures. Alliances were formed not out of fear but out of respect. And humanity, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, now stood as a guardian, a beacon of hope and a force to be reckoned with. Ilara looked at her crew, at the pilots who had flown through fire and death, at the engineers who had built the strike wings, at the people who had trusted humanity's courage with their lives. Her chest swelled with pride, tempered by the knowledge of their losses. We have done the impossible, she said softly. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy is ours to protect, and we will do it with everything we have. Because humans do not kneel. Outside the viewport, stars shimmered against the darkness, each one a reminder of worlds waiting to be explored, defended, and inspired. Humanity's rise was no longer a dream, it was a reality. Empires were broken, admirals humbled, and a new order was being forged. And through it all, the strike wings soared, unstoppable, merciless, and full of human courage. Years had passed since humanity's first strike, yet the memory of those battles still burned bright in the minds of every pilot, soldier, and citizen who had witnessed the rise of the merciless strike wings. The galaxy had changed, and so had humanity. What had once been scattered colonies and underestimated fleets had become a force that no empire could ignore. A symbol of courage and defiance that echoed across the stars. Captain Ilara Kane stood on the bridge of the rebuilt SS Vanguard, older now, her hair streaked with silver, her face lined with both sorrow and pride. She watched the stars, each one a reminder of the countless battles fought, the worlds liberated, and the lives lost. Humanity had proven itself, but the true victory was not in conquest or destruction. It was in the legacy they left behind. Lieutenant Marco, now a seasoned officer and mentor to a new generation of pilots, joined her at the viewport. Captain, he said quietly, do you think the galaxy will ever forget what we did? Ilara smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. No, she said. They won't forget. Not the admirals, not the citizens of every liberated world, not the species that once lived under fear. We showed them that one species, no matter how small, can rise against impossible odds. We showed them that courage, unity, and determination can topple even the greatest empires. The strike wings had become more than machines of war. They were a symbol. Schools taught stories of the pilots who had flown through death without fear. Children played games imagining themselves soaring across the stars, outsmarting impossible odds, defending the weak. Across the galaxy, humans were no longer viewed as primitive. They were respected, admired, and in some places even revered. Yet Ilara knew the victories had come with cost. She had seen friends fall, colonies destroyed, and innocent lives taken by the chaos of war. Every loss weighed heavily on her, a reminder that freedom was never given freely. It had to be earned, defended, and cherished. And that was the lesson she now passed to every young pilot under her command. "Remember this," she said to a group of new recruits standing in formation, their eyes wide with awe. "Courage is not the absence of fear. Bravery is moving forward even when the odds are impossible. Every strike wing you fly, every mission you undertake carries the lives of those who fought before you. Honor them, protect the weak, and never ever kneel." A child from a nearby colony watched from the observation deck, eyes shining with wonder. "Captain Kane," the child asked softly, "will humans always win?" Ilara knelt to meet the child's gaze, her voice gentle but filled with conviction. "We don't always win," she said. "Sometimes we lose. Sometimes we face pain we cannot imagine, but we never give up. We never kneel. And that is enough. That is what makes us human." Outside, the strike wings glided silently through space, their engines leaving trails of light against the darkness. Each jet carried a human pilot who had trained in the lessons of courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Together, they patrolled the borders of liberated worlds, protecting the galaxy not with fear, but with example. They were the guardians of freedom, the living proof that the small could challenge the mighty and that hope could outshine oppression. The galaxy had scars, but it also had stories. Stories of the battles at Orvathian Command Station, the ice fields of Merciless, and the vast armada that had once sought to crush humanity. Every story told of human audacity, of bravery under fire, and of a species that refused to submit. And with each retelling, the legend of the strike wings grew, inspiring new generations to believe that no star, no empire, no force could ever break a determined heart. Ilara turned back to the stars, her thoughts drifting across time and space. She remembered the young pilots who had joined her years ago, the first strike wings soaring into unknown danger, and the fear she had once felt standing at the edge of annihilation, and she smiled, knowing that the human spirit, once tested and tempered, had proven itself indestructible. "Captain Kane," Marco said softly, "do you ever regret the choices we made?" Ilara shook her head, her eyes bright with resolve. "No," she said. "Every choice, every risk, every sacrifice, it brought us here. It brought humanity to a place where no one can dismiss us again. And as long as we remember why we fight, the galaxy will never forget the name of humans." In the quiet of space, the Vanguard drifted past distant worlds, carrying with it the legacy of countless battles, victories, and sacrifices. Humanity's wings had risen higher than any star, and their light would shine across the cosmos for generations. The strike wings were more than machines. They were the embodiment of the human spirit, fearless, relentless, and merciless in their pursuit of freedom. And somewhere, across the liberated galaxies, children pointed to the skies and whispered, "That is where courage lives. That is where humans fly." Ilara Kane stood tall, watching the trail of light left by a squadron of strike wings disappearing into the stars. Her voice, barely audible but filled with unwavering conviction, whispered across the void, "The galaxy has seen us now, and they will never forget. Humans do not kneel." Above her, the stars sparkled like promises of endless possibilities. Humanity had risen. Empires had fallen. Admirals had learned humility. And the legacy of the strike wings would echo through eternity, a reminder that courage, determination, and heart could change the course of history itself.